comes a point in your life when pretending just stops working, where the mask you've been holding up for years starts slipping out of your own hands, where the smile you've been using to keep people comfortable feels like it's costing you more than it's protecting you. And you wake up one day realizing you're exhausted, not from life, but from hiding. I've been there. I know what it feels like to look strong on the outside while something inside you is quietly falling apart. To tell everyone you're okay because you don't want them to worry or disappoint them or admit that you're not steady as you used to be. But here's the truth I had to learn the hard way. God doesn't meet you in the version of yourself you're trying to hold together. He meets you in the version you're scared to show. The honest version, the tired version, the version that whispers, God, I can't keep doing this like this. And that moment, that raw, unfiltered moment, is where purpose actually begins. Not when you're strong, not when you're confident, not when you figured everything out. Purpose begins the moment you finally tell God the truth. There comes a moment in every person's life where pretending just stops working. You can only carry the mask for so long before it gets heavy. You can only say I'm fine so many times before the words start to feel like a lie in your own mouth. I've had seasons where I tried to show God the polished version of me, the version that I had it all together, the version that didn't need help, the version that didn't cry in the car or stare at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering how everything got so screwed up. But God doesn't meet you in the performance. He meets you in the truth. And the truth is, sometimes life breaks you open. Sometimes you lose things you don't think you could ever live without. Sometimes you're forced into roles you never asked for. Sometimes you're rebuilding a life you didn't plan on rebuilding. And in those moments, honesty becomes the doorway. Not strength, not perfection, not pretending. Just honesty. God hears where I really am. Here's what I'm scared of. Here's what I don't understand. Here's what I can't carry anymore. And God says, good, now we can build. Purpose doesn't begin with power. It begins with truth. I've learned something the hard way. You can't build a life with God if you only reach for Him when everything falls apart. And I say that with compassion, not as judgment, because I've done it. I've had seasons where I treated God like a fire extinguisher behind glass. Break only in case of emergency. But purpose doesn't grow in convenience. Purpose grows in consistency. It grows in the quiet mornings when you whisper a prayer before the world wakes up. It grows in the small choices, the ones nobody sees. It grows in the days when you don't feel spiritual, but you still show up. It shows in the moments when you're tired, but you still say, God, walk with me today. A relationship with God isn't built on crisis. It's built on a connection. And when you stop using God as a last resort and start walking with Him as the first step, your whole life begins to shift. It changes. You stop reacting. You start building. You stop surviving, and you start becoming. Purpose isn't something you stumble into. It's something you grow into, one honest, consistent moment at a time. There's a pressure in this world to look stronger than you feel, to look happier than you are, to look further along than you actually are. But here's the truth. God doesn't bless the version of you that you pretend to be. He can only bless the real you. The you that's still healing. The you that's still learning. The you that's still figuring things out. The you that's rebuilding piece by piece. I've lived through seasons where I tried to project strength because I didn't want anyone to worry. I tried to look steady because I didn't want to be a burden. I tried to look confident because I didn't want people to see the cracks. But pretending is exhausting, and it disconnects you from the very help you need. God doesn't ask you to be impressive. He asks you to be honest. He asks you to be real. He asks you to be you. Because purpose doesn't grow in pretending. Purpose grows in authenticity. When you stop performing, when you stop hiding, when you stop trying to be the strong one all the time, you finally give God something real to work with. You know, nobody goes through life without being shaken. Nobody. There are moments that hit you so hard you feel like the ground shifts underneath your feet. The moment that make you question everything. Your faith, your identity, your direction, your strength. And sometimes the shaking feels like a punishment. Sometimes it feels like abandonment. Sometimes it feels like God went silent right when you needed him the most. But here's what I've learned. The shaking isn't the end. It's the beginning. It's the moment where everything that was unstable falls away. In the moment where the truth rises to the surface. In the moment where God starts rebuilding you, not the old you, but the honest you. The shaking doesn't destroy purpose. It reveals it. It shows you what matters. It shows you what's really real. It shows you what needs to stay and what needs to go. And sometimes the shaking is the very thing that wakes you up to a life that God has been trying to build with you all along. As a reflection of this episode, I wrote a poem for it called Steady Me. I tried to look unbroken. I tried to stand up strong. But the truth kept whispering softly, "You've been carrying this too long." I smiled so no one noticed, hide the trembling in my hands. But God saw through the surface. He saw the heart that couldn't stand. He didn't meet my polished version, not the mask I wore to win. He met me in the quiet moment where the tears slipped down my skin. In the place where I said I'm tired, in the place where truth came in. He started building something holy, right where honesty begins. As I bring this episode to a close, let me say this as plainly as I possibly can. Purpose requires courage. Not loud courage, not dramatic courage, not the look at me courage, the quiet courage, steady courage, the courage to be seen as you are, the courage to grow at your own pace, the courage to follow God even when people don't understand. You might be scared. You might worry about what people will think. You might fear being judged, misunderstood, or even talked about. But here's the truth. People don't get to define your calling. They don't get to approve your healing. They don't get to decide your pace. They don't get to rewrite your story. Your purpose is between you and God, not you and the crowd. And when you stop living for their approval, you finally become free enough to live in God's purpose. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be honest. You just have to be willing. You just have to take the next step. Because purpose isn't about being built in the spotlight. Purpose is built in the quiet, honest, courageous moments where you choose God again and again. My closing blessing for the show is, may you walk into this week with the courage to be honest with God, with others, and with yourself. May the mask grow lighter, the truth grow kinder, and the weight you've been carrying finally loosen its grip. And may you feel the God meeting you right where you are, not where you think you should be, not where you used to be, but right here in this moment. May his peace steady you. May his presence rebuild you. And may his purpose rise quietly within you, one truthful breath at a time. I want to thank you for joining me here on Faith Between the Lines, and I hope I met you right where you are. You being here in this space matters. Your questions and comments are always welcome and can be left on YouTube or on Buzzsprout. Before I close, I want to take a moment to honor the families and the men and the women of our military, those who serve, those who have served, and those who stand behind them with quiet strength. Your sacrifice, your courage, and your commitment to this great country do not go unnoticed. May God bless you, protect you, and surround your families with peace and a gratitude from all of us. I will see you right here on next time on Faith Between the Lines.